found knowing possession just based on the tangibility of the images. And it defined the tangibility of the images as their permanent placement on a defendant's hard drive and his ability to access them later. So the same definition of tangibility applies in this case. These files were permanently present on the German server, and the defendant could and did go back and access them later.
Counsel, your colleague made several references to the white-collar task force report and the conclusions that were drawn. Do you care to address that?
Yes, Your Honor. What this defendant did should be punishable as the Class B felony of grand larceny in the first degree. We're talking about the misappropriation of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of materials. And the task force report advocated reforms that would enable us to prosecute it that way. The point wasn't that the unlawful use statute or other existing laws aren't applicable. The point of the task force report was that those laws aren't sufficient, that this should be punishable as a Class B felony.
Well, what about the argument that open source code is available worldwide and that the vast majority of information in the open source code was available to the public on the internet, and so to punish this one person for this thing seems to be like an enormous overreach, given the availability of most of this information.
All right, wrinkles indeed. First, let's talk about Goldman Sachs. And an update we've been following on a story the past few days involves a computer programmer, Sergey Aleynikov. He was arrested last week for stealing software from the company, Goldman Sachs. He is now telling an FBI agent he uploaded proprietary code to an encrypted server. This is according to a copy of his FBI statement that we read in court files here in Manhattan. Now, in the court papers, prosecutors say the code is proprietary, it's worth millions of dollars, and it lets Goldman do what it calls sophisticated, high-speed, high-volume trades in various stock and commodities markets. The assistant U.S. attorney working on the case has said a person misusing the code might be able to manipulate markets. Now, as for Aleynikov, he told the FBI the code has not been shared, and it was not his intent to be involved, Eric, he said, in any malicious action.
Now, Ellen, as I understand it, this fellow Aleynikov was supposed to be hired by some ex-Citadel employees. What's going on with that?
In fact, right, he had been. And that's because the former Goldman Sachs employee went to work to a company started by former Citadel employees. It's a company that is called Teza. And now Teza said that it did suspend Aleynikov after these charges, after the arrest by the FBI. And Citadel is suing the company Teza, again started by former employees, alleging corporate espionage, saying that they had intent to, knowing that this code might then be transferred, or in fact, actually, that they would try to access Citadel code. Of course, Eric, everyone here against whom there are allegations is denying that. But again, it is, as you said, allegations of some espionage there involving these companies. Back over to you.
Successful you've been? We've had 2 or 3 days in a row where we lose money, but we've never had a week so far where we lost. We've never had a month that was a loser for us.
Just 5 years ago, high-frequency traders accounted for 30% of the stock trades in the U.S. Recent estimates have ranged as high as 70%, and institutional traders like Joe Saluzzi of Themis Trading LLC have come to believe that the game is rigged.
How can you make money day after day? There was even one firm that said they made money 4 years in a row, every single day. Well, you have to be getting information that other people don't have. Otherwise, statistically, that's an impossibility.
Actually, high-frequency traders are getting the same market information that Joe Saluzzi gets. They're just getting it a little bit sooner. It's only a few fractions of a second sooner, but if you're running supercomputers, Saluzzi says, it can be an eternity.
What you're saying is the people with the fastest computers have an advantage. They get the best deals.
Every time. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if they're spending that kind of money and they're using that type of infrastructure, they're doing it for a reason, and it is to get a speed advantage in that respect.
It's not just the speed of the supercomputers that's important, it's also their physical location. The closer they are to the stock exchange's server, the quicker they'll be able to get critical market information. For 150 years, the floor of the New York Stock Exchange was the center of the financial world, the economic engine that helped American business raise capital and create jobs. Today, it's still the public facade of Wall Street and a television backdrop for reporters relaying financial news. but less than 30% of the trading is conducted here now, and the specialists and the noise of the floor is being replaced by the speed and quiet efficiency of computers, and the action is moved elsewhere. There are now more than 80 alternative trading systems around the country, plus 2 brand new electronic stock exchanges, which most of you have probably never heard of, BATS and Direct Edge. They're owned by the big banks and by high-frequency trading firms, and neither of them would give us an interview or let us inside to film their operations. But they trade more than 1 billion shares a day at blinding speed, and most of those bets are being made by machines. The players range from firms like Goldman Sachs, Barclays, Credit Suisse, and Morgan Stanley to hedge funds and smaller operations like TradeWorks, which is the only high-frequency trading firm that would talk to us or let us in. It's run by Manoj Narang and a small group of mathematicians and scientists called quants, which is short for quantitative analysts, and their high-speed computers trade 40 million shares every day. Are humans ever involved in the trading?
Humans are not involved in the trading because humans are way too slow to trade on the kinds of opportunities that we're trying to capture. We're trying to capture opportunities that exist for only fractions of a second. The stock over here was down 1.8% for the past week.
The TradeWorks computers don't care where a stock is going to be trading next year, next month, next week, or even tomorrow, because they're going to be in and out of it today in a matter of minutes.